Ready? All right. Welcome, everybody. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. President McNall.
Here?
Vice President Clements.
Here.
Trustee Clemenson.
Here.
Trustee Headland.
Here.
Trustee Valentine. Here.
Great. All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Ms. Shields?
Do you want to mention the change, Dr. Benante?
Sure. The two areas of the agenda which pertain to the intermunicipal agreement, I moved from consent agenda to new business, just so that there would be time for discussion that did not interfere with the other items under consent, if there were questions regarding either of those agreements.
Great. Thank you.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the agenda as discussed.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for being here this evening. We just made it before the snow started to fall. Hopefully it won't be sticking around too long, and I'm glad that it wasn't here over the weekend, all things considered. This is a workshop meeting, and our topic tonight is the Campus Master Plan update. Thanks to the folks at CS Arch in advance for keeping us on track. We're excited about the presentation this evening. The next Board of Education meeting will be held on December 6th, 2022, right here in room 211. The gymatorium in the main building is currently in use by Haldane Drama's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I think next meeting will be the last that we're in here, I believe.
Correct.
Right? If by any chance you want to go, you probably should get tickets soon. That's what I understand. It's been an incredible few weeks here in the Haldane community, and I don't want to steal any of Dr. Benante's thunder, but I'm sure he's going to highlight all the triumphs of Haldane athletics in his comments. But a huge congratulations to all the Haldane athletes and the parents of Haldane athletes that are here this evening, and some of our students who are here as well. Dr. Benante.
Thanks, Sean. And good evening. So we had, as you noted, several athletes competing last weekend. I first wanted to thank John Bauerlein and Julia Sniffen and their staff for coordinating a great send-off for our cross-country and soccer athletes who were going off to states. It's one of the great traditions here at Haldane. It's the entire K-12 community will come out and send our kids off, and they absolutely love it, and it's a great part of their experience as well. Our boys cross-country team competed as a team at states and finished 9th, I believe. Great finish for them. And as many of you have heard, our boys soccer team won the state championship. So fantastic weekend. Both games were great. I had the chance to attend both of them. I know some of you were there as well. And I would say that the feeling of working together and experiencing that type of success is something that those kids and coaches will take with them forever. And I know we're very proud of them. We're very happy for their families. And one thing that stood out to me in particular, watching the boys soccer team play over the course of several weeks in sectional, regional, and state competition, was just their sense of composure, that they encountered very competitive environments, very stressful environments, and they maintained just a real sense of equanimity and steadiness in competition. And I think that defined their character in many ways over the course of the season, and then ultimately their success. I've been assured at some point the state championship plaque will be returned to the school district. I'm not sure where it is right now. I think it's kind of like the Stanley Cup being passed around. Everybody gets their own time with it. However, Coach was able to share one of the medals that the kids and the coaches received. So I'll just pass this around so you can see that. This is the state championship gold medal that that Haldane received. And at some point, we'll have the state championship plaque that the district receives sometime over the next few weeks. And I'm sure we'll find a way, Mr. McNall, to recognize the kids and the coaches at a board meeting in the future. For now, we'll let them enjoy their success. And I look forward to recognizing them at a board meeting in the near future. I'll pass that down to you, John. And just with that, one other just slight change to the agenda. I'm sorry I didn't announce this. I would like to move our student advisor, given the weather, our student advisor presentation to be included in my comments, if that's okay. So at this point, we'll ask Josephine and Amelia to come on up and provide us with your student government report. Yep, right there at the microphone.
As everyone does know, the boys soccer team won states this weekend, the first time in Haldane history. Not only did the boys win states, but the fall sports all had successful seasons. We wanted to update you on how this meant for us as students. As students and specifically student athletes, it has been great to see athletics coming back in full swing. In the past couple of weeks, lots of students have come out to support at playoff games. And for a small community to see such a large student section at games really shows the heart and pride that we have here at Haldane. And having a mascot at the games has really helped to unify everyone. With chants and big energy, the mascot's presence has helped to get everyone engaged. It was great to have a pep rally in the gym for homecoming and to have a full state send-off for the cross-country and boys soccer team. We have really loved seeing the school and the local community unite to support our teams. Also, as sophomores who didn't have a fully normal experience last year, to have everything finally coming back is really making the whole high school experience complete.
So I'm going to talk about the play that's coming up, A Midsummer Night's Dream. As the month of November progresses, Haldane Drama is getting closer to its production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, presented on the 9th, 10th, and 11th of December. Within the drama department, the rehearsals are starting to pick up a lot, and we've nearly finished blocking everything and are now starting to bring all the acts together of an incredibly complicated but fun work of Shakespeare. We hope to attract an audience of all ages to come see the show, and Haldane's take on A Midsummer's Night's Dream is like no other. It includes super fun dances, aerial silks, a woodland set, and a closet of various colorful costumes. Actors have just received posters and will put them up around Main Street and other local businesses around the area. And ticket sales, which have seen better days for our other recent productions, will hopefully increase this year with COVID dying down. COVID has had a really large impact on the drama department, and each year returning with theater, the productions become slightly more normal. Our last musical, A Little Night Music, did not have masks for performers, but COVID still spread to actors in important weeks, and audience members were significantly smaller due to the precautions we had to take. This year, we have really high hopes for both the play and the upcoming musical to take place in March.
From Friday, November 4th to Sunday, November 6th, 12 Haldane students went up to the University of Connecticut to participate in the UConn Model UN Conference. The group was made up of a freshman, a sophomore, 9 juniors, and a senior. During the conference, students were exposed to UN procedures, met lots of new people, and learned about current events. On Friday, the students arrived at the campus and after checking into the hotel, went on to a long night of meetings. They learned about parliamentary procedure, how to address fellow delegates and the chair, and as well as how to prepare opening remarks. On Saturday, they met with their committees, and after a long day of debate, students formed resolutions on their committee's assigned issue. In the evening, there was a delegate dance for all attending members. And on Sunday, the last day of the conference, final resolutions were passed and awards were handed out. Overall, those who attended said that they enjoyed being on a college campus for the weekend and meeting other high school students from other states and even from other countries. Those who attended learned a lot and said they were very glad that they went. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So at this point, if any of our board members have questions for Josephine or for Amelia, now would be the time for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, I've totally got a question. Oh, absolutely. Either one of you can answer. I know that you guys are both, again, we have 2 soccer team members, but as people who both play in sports and know a lot of people who are in sports, one of the things that's coming up that you're not going to have to sit through, which is a great thing, you could stay if you want, is the campus master plan process. One of the things that's being discussed and considered is facilities for athletics and things to do for athletics. So what do you think would be the one thing that would resonate most for changes to support athletics at Haldane? Could be infrastructure, could be program, could be anything.
I know that one thing that our baseball and softball teams always talk about the fields that they're playing on. And because we always, at the soccer games, at basketball, at volleyball, there's always a big crowd that comes out and supports because it's convenient and there's a lot of places to watch from, and the fields and the gym is great. I know that the baseball and softball sometimes lack that, considering that baseball is all the way down by the waterfront and there's less seating. So maybe that would be something that could be considered as not like improving the fields and getting more people there.
Fair.
Do you have anything?
That's a really big point. I think a lot of student athletes, because a lot of us play a lot of different sports, and so it's really nice to like have fans supporting everyone. And so for like some athletes, I feel like everyone should get similar opportunities, to have that same energy during games and practices and whatnot. So that would be a good addition, I think.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
guys.
Safe trip home.
As Josie and Amelia are transitioning out, I'll introduce Melissa, or welcome Melissa back from CS Arch. And Melissa's joined tonight with Chris Laporta. Chris is one of the engineers who is working on this project. We haven't met Chris before, so Chris, welcome. Given the site-based work that is included in this evening's presentation, Chris can speak to some of the more technical aspects that were considered as they present this evening's plan to you. With that, I should set this up that the next phase of the campus master planning process focused on athletics, as John had noted, as well as site circulation. So how we move people and cars and buses about on campus, which is always a hot topic, I think, in the past, or certainly has been. And with that, Melissa, I'll turn it over to you, and I'm going to move.
Thank you, Dr. Benante. Again, you stole my intro, so I don't have too much to add to that. Again, we're going to be talking about site work today that includes athletic play fields as well as campus circulation and parking. And just a precursor to that, just a reminder that everything that you're going to see today is based on feedback that we received through our focus group meetings, meeting with administration, our community survey. So all of that information we've taken, and that has really led us to the plans that you're going to be seeing today. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Laporta from Passero Associates. Passero is a site civil engineering group, and they're consulting with us, and these plans were developed by their office in conjunction with our work and our input. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris to walk us through the plans, and we're happy to take any questions. We can zoom in. Some of the plans are going to be a little bit difficult to see on the monitor. We can zoom in there. Once we get through everything, we can back up and take a closer look at some things if we need to. All yours, Chris.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris Laporta, Passero Associates. I think that was just said 3 times, though. So I'll just dive into it. We're looking at the master plan from the civil engineering and landscape architecture components. So basically everything outside of the building, but we have been integrating into this master plan everything that CS Arch has been looking into as well with the buildings. So here's our agenda, and we have 5 main focuses here. We want to go through, we'll start with the concept plan, kind of show a sneak peek of the overall plan, and then dive into some of the more particular focuses: athletics, circulation, parking, and outdoor education. So this is somewhat of an existing conditions map here. It shows the property boundaries and the aerial imagery, a bit faded with the topography overlaying it. So those very faint lines, they're hard to see. I could see them a little from back here, but those are the contour lines. And I'll skip right to my next slide here. I put some color on it to try and illustrate it graphically. What this is an elevation map. So you could see the blue colors are the low spots and the red colors are the high points. So it goes from south to north, generally from low to high. The next graphic here is a slopes map, which shows basically a green means flat, and red, the darker the red, it means very steep. So you could see generally, for example, the northwest side of the property, which is all wooded right now, is all very steep slopes, and the greener or yellow areas are the areas that are, mostly already developed because they're the flatter, more developable areas. So this is our proposed concept plan, master plan, and you can see that we're kind of playing within the constraints that we just outlined with the topography and utilizing the space that's available. I won't dive into a large amount of detail here. I'll kind of go through the presentation, and we have the areas of focus. So the athletics is basically the southern side, and then the circulation is the northern side. So we'll go through the presentation, get into the details of some of these areas, and then when we're done, we could back up to the master plan and zoom into any particular area that we want to focus on. So starting off with athletics, we're showing on the left the existing condition, on the right the proposed condition, and I guess I'll work my way from south to north. Where the existing softball diamond is, we're showing a multi-use field, and what we're doing is reorienting the softball diamond so that it's facing to the north. The preferred direction for a baseball or softball diamond is northeast. That's kind of due north, but we're also working with the constraints of the roadways on the side. And that's what we're doing is there's almost two shelves there where there's the existing ball fields, and as you start at the road elevation, you come down to the first field, and then there's probably a 8 to 10 foot drop down to the second field. So this would require a bit of earthwork to push the slope out a little bit, but we think that it's a doable project. We looked at a lot of alternatives in this area. We were like, can we fit baseball in here? But baseball is a lot bigger. It would have been a massive amount of earthwork. So, and we also wanted to leave some areas, those little blue blobs that you see at the bottom of the screen there, we reserved as potential stormwater management areas. When you put in a turf field, it acts more like an impervious surface. The rainwater runoff comes off a lot faster, so you'll need to slow it down a little bit. We're showing the addition of 4 tennis courts right next to the existing tennis courts there. Right now there's an existing stormwater pond there, so it's very hard to see on the screen at this size, but I think I have parentheses there that say stormwater beneath. So there's an existing attenuation pond there. It's definitely doable to put the tennis courts there, but what we wanted to do was make it clear that we would need to put the underground stormwater management like chambers or storage in order to accommodate the existing stormwater flows. I'm not saying you need to do that. That's why I showed the other 2 blobs down there, the other blue areas. We identified a few areas that we could put stormwater management, and as any component of the project moves forward, we'd look more into the engineering feasibility and the construction costs to see which location makes the most sense.
Before you go further, just back up. I don't think you mentioned that there's a multi-purpose field that's synthetic, that's overlapping. I think you just talked about softball in that area. So
yeah.
If you could back up and just cover that a little bit, I think.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, it is we are proposing it as a turf multi-use field that would accommodate softball, soccer, football, and lacrosse. That's pretty important. I'm surprised I glazed over that.
And the amenities that are proposed in there as well.
Yeah, and we're also showing accessibility, so there's a sidewalk that'll go all the way around to both bleachers. Lighting, which we're putting on the master plan. That's obviously a decision that could be made down the line with sensitivity to the neighboring communities and things like that. But this is for the master plan purpose, we wanted to show the full package, and it's almost like a menu that you can pick and choose pieces of. So. Yeah, we're showing obviously new dugouts, small bleachers, and parking on the street there. I think we also are showing maintenance or storage building in the top corner of the field there.
And then the high jump.
Oh.
area, I don't think you
Nope, and I didn't make it all the way to the top yet. There's the, we're showing right on the northwest side of the track a long jump, and right at that north corner there a high jump. There's also existing stormwater ponds there, so we would need to either put the attenuation beneath it, which would be just large pipes to store the stormwater beneath it and release it slowly, or we'd route it down to a new stormwater practice at a lower point, as we discussed earlier. I put in a slide here to just show Mayor's Park down at the waterfront. That is an existing baseball diamond there. The school district does not own this land, but it is something that could be pursued as, say, a maintenance agreement for improvements and continual maintenance to utilize it for baseball. It is getting further away from the campus way down there, but it is a big enough field to play baseball, and there could potentially be some improvements made to it. I believe there's also a softball diamond on the southern side there that you could hardly see on the aerial because it's in pretty rough condition. The next major focus was circulation. So what we did here is we took a look at everything from parking to bus and parent pickup and drop-off circulation. I'm going to move forward to the slides. We have some graphics that'll help illustrate the flow patterns here. So the yellow lines are what we're considering for bus routing. You can see we kind of reorganized the bus parking spaces there to, right now they're in the same general area, but they're kind of scattered in different locations. So we tried to make a more efficient layout there, and also to create a pattern that the buses are generally staying on the northern side of the campus. So for the high school, you could see the big 1 in a circle there, and then for the main building, there's a 2 in a circle. So those are the 2 locations that we were considering for pickup and drop off for the buses. Okay, and then the car circulation, the pickup and drop off locations would be on the lower side, where you see the same 1 and 2 graphics there. We do show the orange circulation going up into the high school parking lot on the high side there. That's because there's parking back there, and there's also the potential that there could be pickups at the gym. So we did want to show that line for now, but generally having the pickup and drop off queues on the other side, what we're doing here is we're kind of separating the bus and the car traffic, keeping the cars on one side and the buses on the other. We're also, I'm sure everyone probably caught that we have this traffic circle in the middle here, and we're creating a connection between the high side and the low side there.
We're also reducing the central loop in the center that's going around that center lawn area. Right now, you have a small circle within the larger circle, or a loop within a loop. We're recommending you get rid of that smaller bus circle, so it is just one large smooth loop that includes those 2 drop-off areas.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll tab back to our existing condition here. You can see that there's a kind of a similar loop that goes from the main building back to the high school, and there's another loop right where the number 1 is there, and that loop is kind of redundant because there's already a loop that you can circle in. So we created a little bit more open space by taking this approach and by removing an inefficiency. So this graphic here kind of puts it all together. The yellow is the busing, the orange, reddish color is the cars, and then the darker yellowish, reddish color is the combined traffic. Okay, so parking. We provide the statistics here on this slide. There's about 145 existing paved parking spaces, 25 gravel parking spaces for 170 total. In this layout here, we've added 59 paved spaces, eliminated 25 plus or minus. We counted on the aerial when we saw it pretty full. There's not really any defined spaces up there. So we have about 209 total proposed. So we're showing an addition of 34 spaces, many of them gained through the efficiency of redoing the parking lot on the top there.
And this new parking lot in the back, this is working off of a revised high school layout that's showing that option O that we talked about last time. So this is now showing your proposed additions on either side. And because of that new lobby that can be created on the west side of the high school, that creates a new rear entrance from that new proposed parking lot. So roughly the same location your parking lot is in, but expanding that and covering over what's currently gravel. So it's one large paved parking lot and then providing a loop that goes around that for drop off. If you were to decide you did not want to do bus drop off along the back, you could still come further down the road and drop off where you're currently dropping off, that's more in front of the district office. Or you could certainly do that sequentially if you haven't yet constructed, a later phase that includes that auditorium and gym and that rear entrance. You can continue to use this parking lot layout and just drop off students more in front of the district office until that later phase comes about.
Yep, exactly. This is a conceptual master plan, so there's a lot of flexibility to it. And when it comes time to design these components, there's certainly a number of options that can be built into them. Here's a zoom in. We already kind of talked about it earlier, where we're showing the reorganized bus parking. We right now we show, I think, the two locations for fueling, but the idea here is that there'd be some space here that we can start to prepare and think about the future with electric vehicle charging and such for the buses. So the charging stations can be placed along these parking spaces here, and that's something that it feels like it's a long way away, but it's going to come quick. I believe, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2025 you can no longer buy the diesel buses.
25, I believe you can no longer purchase, and 35 your entire fleet is supposed to be electric. That may change, but that's their current protocol that they're working towards. May not be practical. They may reel back on that a little bit.
But nonetheless, something to consider for the future. And if you put the parking lot in and just run some conduit while you do it and be ready for it, that's not too expensive to do. Okay,
Can we move over the outdoor learning?
Sure. So I'll let Melissa take the outdoor learning component of it, but we did denote the areas in this yellowish color, which may be hard to see on the screen.
So during our reconnaissance and programming with your staff and students, we did also meet with the PTA, and I had a large component and representation of an outdoor education committee, and they shared with us their plans that they've developed over the last few years working towards providing more outdoor learning opportunities. So we wanted to acknowledge that and show some recognition of their hard work in some areas where you can start to provide some of these. As Chris mentioned, there's a small box, it's very hard to see, but their report had identified several priority sites to provide an outdoor classroom, and this is really something that's providing shade coverage, open air, and then probably a concrete slab with either a built-in or mobile furniture type setup, something to replace the rentable tents that you currently have. We would propose you would minimally do one for the elementary school, one for the middle school, and one for the high school. There are many priority sites identified, so you have more locations than you probably need, but we would recommend that you at least continue 3 in your master plan to provide areas for outdoor classroom space. And And then in the center of this central loop, we're labeling the auditorium. This plan is by no means a set plan of exactly what this would look like, but represents that this is an ideal location to provide an amphitheater or something that recognizes the topography and the great views that your central lawn area has, and provide an area for larger group gatherings outside on your campus.
Do you want me to try and zoom in on the screen?
We can, sure. And I think this is our last slide, so we're happy to go back and answer questions and take a closer look at anything if we need to. Tap the screen, and does that box on the lower left come up? Usually that's what we need. I'm not sure why it's working.
It's a semi-smart screen.
Yeah. Well, the monitor worked last week, but anyway.
It's, are the priority sites those sort of slightly lighter color boxes along?
We identified some areas here along.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a few locations right where Chris is pointing that are behind, that are between your elementary school wing and your property line back where
Yep.
the gardens are.
Yep.
There's a few that are over near the Bell Lot and Rock area. We're not
Yep.
proposing getting rid of the Bell Lot or the Bell or the Rock, but in that area, an ideal location for potential outdoor classroom. And then up at the high school, there's a few locations, but it could potentially be in front of the high school, adjacent to where our proposed student center is. We're showing this red area, which is more of a new patio, and that could have, a shaded covering in that area as well.
We did also identify, there could be an opportunity to put a trail in the wooded area and have some sort of challenge course, I guess kind of like a ropes course for kids in this area up here.
And these were all things that, again, were in the outdoor education report as recommendations and future improvements for the Haldane community. So, any questions?
Yeah, maybe the best way to organize this might be going back to the top of the presentation and just starting with athletics and see if folks have questions moving forward, do you think?
We'll get there. I'll leave it there.
I'm gonna have one question. It's gonna be about that artificial turf on the, the lower field there. Explain to me the advantage of having an artificial turf softball field instead of clay.
Well, by having turf, it allows you to utilize that space to also have other sports like football and lacrosse there. You can see the fields are overlapping, so we couldn't fit a standalone, and having clay wouldn't make sense in the middle of, of the football or soccer. So you could also, get a fair amount of play on the turf field, whereas, the grass is more maintenance if you have a high level of activity on it.
During our focus group meetings, particularly with the athletics group, but it came up in others as well, is there's just not enough play fields to support all the athletic teams here, from modified, JV to varsity, practice and competition use. There's just not enough space. So modified is certainly sacrificing, JV is sacrificing, because a lot of times, the play time goes to the varsity, and then you put weather and things like that into the mix, and you're reducing that time even more. So providing a synthetic turf field in any location is certainly going to expand your playability. Teams can be on there consistently, as well as PE use. So this is affecting every single student in your Haldane community if you're using it for PE use as well. So that's always important to remember. It's not just supporting your athletic teams, but the ability to get on that field 24/7, as much as weather is permitting you, is really significant for the impact for this area, especially when you have such limited space elsewhere.
Also, a follow-up on that is it better cost benefit to have an artificial turf than to have grass and clay? Over the long term.
I'll let Chris answer. Probably he has a little bit more detail, but it's important to note, and I know you're doing this currently, putting money aside for replacement of your existing synthetic turf. They don't last forever, and they do require some maintenance. It's not as regular and consistent as mowing grass and things like that, but they do require some maintenance. But Chris can perhaps talk a little bit more about the cost cycle there.
I can a bit. I'll apologize. I'm not a landscape architect. I wish I had one of them here to get into the real details of it, but to really do a cost-benefit analysis of it, I think what makes it a major win is that you could have multiple different sports on this field. So you're really utilizing the limited space. We have a very constrained site because of the topography. So you're going to get a lot of play out of the field for a number of different sports. I can certainly get you additional detail as a follow-up to the,
Don't worry.
Yeah. And this is,
Let's ask what we really want to ask. What is it, if we were just looking at softball and sort of letting the multi-use, common sense angle go, what is it like to play on
A perfectly
turf?
selfish question. Yes.
Play on turf versus a grass field? Like, do we know what the difference is in terms of?
You're asking
Yeah,
the
authentic
playability of it and
play.
health. So I actually recently attended a conference for synthetic turf. They brought in a third-party health analyst who's a doctor. I'm sure he has some better title than I'm explaining.
From the sugar company?
No. So he was not affiliated with any turf companies whatsoever. His entire life is just doing analysis on sports injuries and such. And what they're finding is there's actually less injuries and certainly less impactful, significant injuries on synthetic turf. So there may be more frequent minor injuries, but they are not higher in those that put people out for a season, that require surgery, that have long-term or lifelong effects. We can certainly share that data with you if that's something you're interested in, and we can also, request someone to come in here and actually talk to you guys if you're interested in more information in that. But health-wise, the old synthetic turf fields certainly had, more dangers and health effects that people were concerned with. The current synthetic turf fields that are being put in now and more recently, we're not seeing the same.
I have a question about, I know that the current softball field, as indicated here, is it for practice only, or is it also for play? Is it going to be regulation play?
It's as much as you want to use it.
That's possible.
So JV, modified varsity, I said that out of order, but modified JV varsity for soccer, lacrosse, football, and your softball team, as much and as however you want to schedule use of that. It is sized appropriately for competitive use. So the length of a full-size football field and the width of a full-size soccer field, those are your widest, your longest dimensions.
I appreciate that point, because our biggest problem is our constraint, right? Our best advantage is the beauty of being in town, right? There's nothing that compares to it, right? It's unbelievable. But when you come to athletic field, that beauty also ties us in a little bit. So multi-use side, definitely understand the reason for it. Obviously, though, I go back to when this was originally, when we did our earlier turf field, and we have a track that is a bit too short, right? And so that's what it comes down to when we want to make sure going forward that, these things that we're able to put in are competition worthy, right?
And I know your team looked at, being able to potentially get a full-size track in
We
there.
looked very hard, and it's just, it's unfortunate. There's not a good way to do it. It's very, you could see how tight it is in there.
So-
And those are very steep slopes too, so.
Even taking out of the conversation that it's a newer field that you know potentially still paying for, and maybe sensitivities, even taking that out of the equation, there's really just no feasible, practical way for us to put a full-size track on your campus.
I don't know much about tennis. How many tennis courts do you need to have to? Maybe this is a question to you. How many tennis courts? I know 2 is not the number.
Minimally 4, ideally 5.
Okay.
But they're generally done in pairs.
In pairs, yeah,
So
okay.
that's how we got
Okay.
to 6. So
All right, cool.
the goal would be minimally 4. As we start to look at stormwater treatment and
Yeah.
options there, the goal would be to give you 6.
Cool. Thank you.
But 4 would be a possibility, and that might mitigate some of the cost of rerouting the drainage. Okay, great. Any other?
But you have 5 matches, is that correct? Am I
I don't play tennis
Do
either,
you
but
have
I,
five
but I
matches, right?
believe that's the way it works, and that's why.
Okay.
There's a
Thank you.
3-2 format and a 3-4 format.
Right,
So
okay.
if it's 3-4, it's 3 singles, 4 doubles.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
There we go.
Any other questions about the athletics portion? All right. Do we want to talk about circulation next? I think that's that. Oh, well, Mayor's Field. No, we'll get back. We'll get to that later. So, all right. Yeah.
Maybe I'll
Go
just
to the
put it on
overlay,
the
yeah.
one that shows both.
So the dark or the yellow orange line it's for car traffic sort of off hours, right? When we're not doing drop off or pick up with the buses. Right, we'll circle around.
Yeah, the darker red or orange is for car traffic. If I go back, there it was, to this slide, it shows the 2 parent pickup and drop off locations that we were looking at.
Sorry for those that can't hear me on the microphone, but so cars for vehicle for student drop off and pickup would enter from the south end of your campus on Craig's side, loop around, drop off or pick up at the elementary school, continue to do the same for the high school, and then continue out. If it was a staff, generally this parking back here is for staff and students only. If it was a car that needed to progress to that area, we're now providing a full road here that runs in both directions and a new traffic circle. So generally, vehicles are just doing this. If they need to come up, they can go around and go to that loop. Or if they're entering on your side road here, they can do the same thing to go in and out. But generally, again, this is just staff and students accessing this parking. So the bulk of your vehicular traffic that you're concerned with aren't maybe going to obey a bus is constrained down here, so separated from the buses. So if you want to go to the bus one, Chris, we can go through that. So again, your buses, when they're returning to campus, are coming in on this road, which is a bus-only road, entering around, going through this back loop, dropping off for the high school here, or again, we mentioned you could drop off or pick up here, and then the same thing, your location for the elementary school is along your curb here where your recess and playground is, and then coming back out your side entrance here.
Great. There was considerable conversation in both our small meeting and large meeting and committee about whether car traffic at drop-off should be rerouted up to where the buses are, whether the buses should be down on the lower end coming up Craig's side. And I think this presented optionality so that no matter where we choose to go, this at least gives us the option to make some choices, whereas right now we're just sort of locked in.
Correct. We can't, as of now, change the number of entrances and exits that we have. We have 3 ways you can access or exit campus. This provides us with better options if administratively we were to determine, a different routing structure than what we currently have in place. I don't think there is no perfect option that's going to alleviate some of the concerns that occur as traffic's coming out on Mountain Avenue or down on 9D and traffic issues that are encountered there, both at arrival or dismissal. There's no way to necessarily solve all of that. That being said, this gives us at least some good options for how traffic can route on campus efficiently, effectively. Melissa spoke to that, keeping buses separate from cars to a greater extent, which should help create a more efficient exit from campus. So we're appreciative of that.
And really what this plan is doing is giving you roadways that work in both directions that are wide enough to accommodate really any plan that you want to deploy. So with the use of signage that says, no cars during these hours, or, buses only, cars only, with creative signage, you can manipulate the usage of these roads in the future. If, we deploy one plan and it seems to not work for you, or, some of your protocol changes and you want buses to come in from a different location, you at least now have roadways and connections from north and south with a new roundabout there, so you can make those connections.
Great. Any questions? Peggy, I'm sorry, I don't think that are you looking online on the slideshow? Do you have any questions or?
No, I'm looking on the slideshow. This is a really minor question, but there's a handful of parking spaces that are at the very what you have marked now as a bus only road. But I assume that you could still have cars go to get those handful of spaces. That's a district visitor parking.
If you're talking about behind Mabel Merritt in that area,
Yes,
that would
yeah.
be district office staff, and I think there's probably be exceptions for those few cars.
Yeah.
Great. I guess moving on. Let's see the next. Any parking questions? No. Oh, good. Glad to hear that. Moving on.
Our goal was to provide enough parking for all of your staff, and I know Julia gave us some counts for both staff and students. So we tried to accommodate parking for staff and students at that back lot. So you can see the numbers of what you have existing compared to what is proposed. But we are not expanding any parking down at the main building or that area. So all of your gain is on the north end.
Julia, just seniors and juniors can park, or just seniors?
Right
or?
now, it's a lottery, and only 25 seniors can park on campus.
And this would allow
This
all
would-
seniors at least?
This would give us at least all seniors.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was 34, does that sound about right, of the desired student parking spaces? I'm not sure.
No, there were 25. I think
So
it
was
was
it
adding an
25?
additional 35.
Okay.
Is about where you landed.
Yep. And so it's all one lot, you would just number them and assign them. So if you needed to assign more staff, it's less students.
Okay. Great. And I guess outdoor learning is our last. Any questions? No? Okay.
I love that. I appreciate the fact that this is included. I think it's great, especially after having gone to the Garrison School and having our retreat at their outdoor pavilion or whatever, which with power, with a shelter, with a concrete pad, it's great. It's a great way to be able to use it.
The landscape in view is really, the best feature of the Haldane community aside from your staff and students, of course. So to not take the opportunity to recognize that and capture that, I think would be a miss.
Yeah.
It's important.
Great.
Just one question that hasn't been explicitly talked about, but I'll ask. Have you considered pedestrian traffic and movement between buildings, and is that impacted by, just in general? Have you considered it?
We definitely did. It's the white lines that you see all over the drawing there are sidewalk and pedestrian corridors, and connecting the main building to the high school there. We show the two crosswalks on the triangle, so that's the one corridor for people to cross between the two buildings, and people that are going around to the loop. If there's not a lot of traffic that's cutting between the low end and the high end, we saw that as less traffic, so an ideal location to put our crossing.
Got it.
Great.
Just one other thing, just for point of clarity. Food service is still limited to just the main building? Or
Correct.
Is it?
Our
Okay, thank you.
intentions with the student center was to provide, a small cafe that would provide grab and go type things. We know you don't have, the staff, or really we didn't hear the desire to provide another cooking location or, food service location. It's really just providing grab and go, and really the important part was to provide a place for students to sit and eat. So if they're bringing their lunch or going home and bringing food, things of that nature, they'll have the space to do that in that, large student center / cafeteria, and have available for grab and go cafe type items.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great.
I just noticed it's kind of hard to see, but I appreciate the terraced.
Yeah.
I can't read it. Contained courtyard
In between
patio.
your cafeteria
Jeez.
and art
Yeah.
area.
That's a great use
We
of that
recognize
space.
there's
It's kind of
potential
sitting there.
and opportunity
Yeah.
for space there that we can capture and make more purposeful.
fairly easily. Yeah. Okay.
Especially adjacent to the art areas back there.
Right.
Could have
Right.
some outdoor access and outdoor gallery
Yep.
space.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
Peggy? No? Good. Thank you. So there's no action to be taken today. We're just reviewing. This is an ongoing process. We'll get to learn as we go forward. So thank you both. So I'm sure Dr. Benante would also like to give his gratitude to you as he slowly makes his trip.
I'll just
over to
remind
Germany.
you, our last couple meetings, we presented on the proposed building additions. This one was obviously focused on site work and exterior improvements. We have upcoming meetings that we'll be talking about interior renovations or smaller projects, as well as infrastructure updates, things that are coming out of a building condition survey, the less flashy stuff, and, flooring and piping and that kind of stuff. So several topics yet to come.
Oh, Melissa and Chris, thank you. And I know you didn't highlight the focus group and survey feedback in this as part of this presentation, but you have in others, and it's nice to see the continued connection to the feedback that you heard from our community last spring, now reflected in design elements. So I really appreciate that and look forward to the next round of presentations.
Great.
Thanks so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, drive safe.
Thank you. Drive
Thanks.
safe.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to communication from the public. I don't think that we have anyone from the public, so maybe in interest of time, I'll skip reading the paragraph and we can move straight to information reports. We've already heard from Josie and Amelia, so moving on to Ms. Christine Jamin for the elementary school principal report.
Good evening. You have my report, so I'm just going to highlight, just like the students said, the return to things on campus has been really exciting for professional development too. Zoom with students all day, and then Zoom with parent meetings, and Zoom with even our faculty meetings last year because of trying to keep distancing. We're too big for one place. So this was really our first superintendent's conference day to do professional development in one room, not on Zoom. And we had Megan Hargrave, our literacy consultant, on campus for 4 days, working with our teachers on incorporating best practices of the science of reading into our reading and writing instruction. There were opportunities for her to work with grade levels, push into classrooms, work with students. On the professional development day, we had all staff together in one place, building common understanding and language after working in small groups on maybe specific concerns or obstacles that they were seeing with their students or their grade level. And it was just great to have that chance to have somebody back in your room modeling a strategy, working on it, reflecting on it, working in person instead of on a screen that is just difficult in so many ways. And then our aides and TAs had the chance to work with a professional developer on ways to increase engagement in recess games and build routines for our students. So we're going to be incorporating some of those changes into recess, not to limit choice or freedom or any of that, but just increase the types of games that get more kids playing and working together and having fun, not getting hurt or having conflict. So wonderful PD on supervision and engagement for them too. So just a really good day with a lot of good feedback and good work by our teachers and staff.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, I don't think so. All right. Dr. Seelke, middle school principal report.
Good evening, everyone. So during COVID, we also couldn't have visitors. So for the first time since 2019, I was happy to have Aria Clemenson and Charlie Brooks, our PTA VPs to the middle school, organize a meet and greet for all the class parents and the team leaders. Sometimes people think that once we hit middle school, we don't have class parents, but we do, except instead of bringing party stuff for kids' birthdays, what they're doing is helping the team leaders plan all of the many activities at the various grade levels. And with things coming back into full swing, we're anticipating having, back to normal, if not even more activities than we had before COVID. So we're pretty excited about that. And that was a great chance for a meet and greet with the class parents and the team leaders. And also, the PTA VPs are supporting the middle school community read this year, and I don't have, I'm not going to reveal the theme or the books yet because they are not set in stone, but the selections are being read. So, and the evening will be held indoors, February 16th. So that's another change back. We had been doing the community read outdoors for COVID precautions. So the planning committee will be announcing the theme and the selections after Thanksgiving. So looking forward to that. Also, the middle school student council is under Mr. Vergidamo's leadership this year, and those students are working very hard, and they have supported and prompted a wellness week, which will be the week right before winter recess, December 19th through the 23rd for the middle school. And they are polling the middle school to see what our middle school students would like to do for wellness activities. And that will then launch Wellness Wednesdays once a month for the rest of the school year. So that's really exciting stuff coming up as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the high school principal report, Ms. Sniffen.
Should note that Ms. Sniffen gains additional mobility in her leg with each month that she reports.
She does.
It's great to see.
One step at a time.
One step.
In the new line. So just a few highlights for the high school. I know there's been a lot of conversation with the Garrison and the Garrison 8th grade, but we were able to welcome the Garrison students on November 8th. We had 20 high school students participate in panel discussions, in meet and greet, visits to classrooms, and tours for the Garrison students. So I just want to mention that. And then that evening, I had the pleasure of meeting with approximately 20 Garrison parents, giving them an overview of programming and the offerings here at Haldane High School. So that was definitely a productive evening. In addition to that, I need to just thank our guidance department. As many of you know, if you've had students in high school or if you can go back to your own time period, November 15th is a huge day, as is November 1st. As of November 10th, we had 451 college applications go out. And so managing that sheer number in our tiny little office is a lot. Kristen Amato, who is our leave replacement for Amanda Kotchin, has just been tremendous. And I just cannot thank her enough. Watching the seniors and the students go through this process has been fairly seamless. It's never seamless. But we are starting to see acceptance letters rolling in and that excitement in the high school office with that process. So I wish I had a number as of today, since November 15th is today. I'm going to guess that's plus at least 50, if not close to 75 additional college applications went out over the last couple days. And then finally, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow we are bringing back Friends and Family University, which we haven't had for a few years. And the theme this year is digital health and safety. We have Katie Greer coming to us. She's a nationally recognized speaker. She has an interesting background. She was actually a former intelligence analysis for the Massachusetts State Police and the director of internet safety for the Massachusetts Attorney General. So we look forward tomorrow to welcoming her. She will be meeting with our high school students, middle school students, and elementary students. Clearly age-appropriate presentation. We got Katie's name from actually our Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. That tomorrow evening, following a PTA pasta dinner, free of charge, the PTA is sponsoring this, in the cafeteria, Katie will be presenting to parents and community members interested in coming. So spread the word. We still have some spots for the pasta dinner. If you haven't registered, the link was sent out at least 3 times. And the information is also on the website. So we're looking at right now, we have just about 100 people for dinner. So we still have some more spots if people are interested in registering. Hope to see you then.
Thank you. Director of Pupil Personnel Services, Dr. Keisha.
Good evening. So I'll just highlight a few things. Our department has been very busy as well. We tried to make very good use of our superintendent's conference day. Those hours are very precious, so we try to use them wisely. And we really tried to focus on creating some staff development opportunities with relevance in mind, really trying to be responsive to some of the feedback that we receive from staff. So I was able to customize some of the opportunities for some of the work that was happening. And I worked personally with a group of middle and high school special education teachers on the concept of universal design for learning. So that ties into Mr. Josh Elder's work, where he was working on curriculum design, and this helps us to kind of look at ways that we can make curriculum and learning more accessible, not just for our students that might have learning differences, but also for all students. So that was kind of a highlight. We've been able to see some of our children have some nice successes when the literacy consultant was there. The student that was kind of highlighted as really grasping a concept and getting that aha moment during her model lesson was actually one of our children that received special education services. And, you know, you really could see that his eyes lit up and he was just so proud. So there's a lot of good work happening. And I know you're going to be looking at the contract for the audit tonight, and so I'm really looking forward to getting that work started as well.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Director of Curriculum and Human Resources, Mr. Josh Elder.
Good evening, everyone. This month, we are pleased to put forth to the Board of Education submitting the Haldane Professional Learning Plan for the Board of Education's approval. The purpose of the Professional Learning Plan is to ensure that teachers and leaders have opportunities for professional growth, remain current in their professions, and meet the needs of their students. The plan by itself articulates how we go about this, right? And the plan has been the culmination of work that started prior to my arrival, that started in the 2020-21 school year, and we continued the work last year. Through survey results and conversations with teachers and work with the Haldane Curriculum Council, the plan we put forth this year articulates our goals for the year and how our professional development is going to be aligned to those goals and the ways in which we help to achieve those goals, as well as provide some information for teachers on their requirements for how they have to stay current in their certification areas. It's required by the state of New York, and so we're pleased to put this forth for approval. Plans can be 1 year or multi-year plans. The one we're putting forth this year is just for this current year, with the idea that as we get towards the end of the school year, we will go through a process of revision and thinking about what that plan would look like for next year. I think one of the things that we hope to achieve by it is to ensure that our goals and our professional learning is aligned to state standards, but this also aligned to the strategic coherence plan, and just making sure that everything that we're doing is effective and strategic as possible, given our resources.
Great. Any questions? No? Thank you, Mr. Elder. Mm-hmm. Director of Facilities and Transportation, Mr. Tim Walsh.
Good evening. We spent a lot of time over the past couple months talking about the master plan, in which we'll hopefully develop in future capital projects. But I'll give a brief overview of where we sit in our current capital construction work, the 2019 capital referendum. Attached to the agenda was a spreadsheet, which is a high-level overview of where we currently, or what was included in the referendum and where we currently sit. If you review that, you can see an overview of the line items, estimates, as well as bid prices which came in, as well as the current status of those work projects. We develop it around basically 3 primary phases. And the phases were developed around the larger scale projects with smaller line items sprinkled in there. So the site work, which was all the paving in the Bell lot, the playground lot, the window replacement in the elementary school, as well as what was most recently completed, which was the electrical mechanical upgrades. The most significant work that is remaining is asbestos abatement in the Mabel Merritt building. That work is currently with the architect. They've completed the design and are ready to submit to State Education Department, just completing some minor paperwork for that submission. And general overview, we've currently spent about $1.8 million of about the $2 million of the construction funds. There's still some balance remaining in there, soft costs for architectural and consultant fees, and there's construction balance of about $160,000 remaining, which, according to the architect, is about the cost of what the asbestos abatement of the Mabel Merritt would be. So once that gets submitted to the state, it takes about 8 to 10 weeks for approvals, and then that can be placed out for bid, and that should hopefully finalize the 2019 capital referendum.
Amazing.
Unless there's any questions.
Is this your final report that you're giving to the? thought it might
Yes,
be.
sir.
Yeah, it is. I see you're bringing your mic a little bit closer, Doctor.
Somewhat prompted me. I think we just wanted to acknowledge that it is Tim's last report before he makes his transition to the Haldane Central School District. Tim's been with us for 3 years, in a very unique time, obviously, when it came to facilitating learning and enhancing safety on our campus at the beginning of the 2020-21 school year. And I just wanted to acknowledge that, thank Tim for his service to Haldane. He certainly is going to be missed. And leave it at that, John, unless there was anything more you wanted to say.
No, I just similarly, I just wanted to express my gratitude, and you've been very generous with your time and all of your expertise, and we benefited from it mightily. So thank you so very much. Thank you. Great. And Athletic Director and Dean of Students, Mr. John Bauerlein.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I really don't have much to report because Dr. Benante said everything.
He took it all from
John.
It was good, though.
Thank you.
No, I have a couple things that weren't on my report that I will share with you. We just found out Monday that Ryan Enwong and Will Sniffen were selected All-State. So that's quite the honor. I met with Mark Patnella today, who's one of our weight room supervisors, and we're going to try a pilot program where we're going to have 2 sessions, one for females and one for male athletes, or anyone who wants to go into the weight room. So we're going to promote that a little bit, just one, because of the size of it, and 2, to be able to work with our female athletes separately from the male athletes. That's all I have.
All the other good news I've covered, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I don't know if we acknowledged, John, and I just can't remember where the meetings fell, the girls' soccer team who lost in the regional match, but had a great season as well. I'm sorry to acknowledge that when our student advisors were here, who were both participants in that team. Lost to a tough Millbrook team.
Yeah, on my report I had individual and team accolades, and the girls' tennis team won the league championship. As you said, girls' soccer won the section and lost in the sub-regional to Millbrook. So overall, it was a great fall for Haldane athletics. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter.
Oh, very nice. That's right.
H Blue
Bring the
Devils,
plugs.
hashtag H Blue Devils. Thank you.
Dr. Benante shared a photograph of you.
Yes, I think it's the photo of the year.
Cross country. You're fully engaged, so it's great to see you. So thank you so much.
I will take credit for John Kisslinger for coming in second place. I had him the last 25 yards, and he was a little bit behind. And, I made eye contact with him, and I think I really pushed him over that finish line.
Thank you, Obi-Wan. All right. All right.
It's a great photo.
Yeah, it is. It's
I
great.
think it's a great photo.
All right, moving on to consent agenda minutes. There is no action indicated here, but we do need to, so.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the minutes from the November 1, 2022 Board of Education workshop meeting prepared by District Clerk Megan Shields.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Great. All right, the next into committee minutes. These are the policy committee minutes from November 1st. We might address those a little bit later when we do a little reporting. Moving on to consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anything we want to discuss before we move through?
I
There's
just
quite a
have
bit
a-
on here, so. go ahead.
We're going to do the intermunicipal agreement separate.
Those are now
Okay,
under
fine.
new business.
Okay, right. Do we do change orders? This is the first time I've ever seen a change order.
Yeah, if Tim can speak to that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And Tim, just know if you don't have the agenda in front of you, change order number 1 was Putnam Windows. And change order, it should be number 2, was the Lombardo Plumbing and Heating. Change order.
Correct.
Yep.
So we issue a change order when there is an increase to the contract value. So in both situations with Putnam Windows, there was a slightly more material to the window screen, so it increased the dollar value of that contract. And then with Joe Lombardo Plumbing and Heating, there was some additional piping that needed to be relocated. So it was additional cost that was incurred by the contractor. Cool.
And I would just say it's unique that it just hasn't come up yet.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
But because you're increasing the dollar value of the contract has been predetermined.
We need your approval
You need
to
approval,
go ahead and
even if
award it.
it's de minimis. Okay, cool.
I had a couple questions. Are we here yet on the Garrison Haldane contract?
Yep.
Is that-
That's where we're.
So just context, if I may, Maggie, before, this is the agreement that Garrison approved at their, I'll say their last meeting, it may have been the meeting before that, after discussion regarding their current 8th grade cohort. So this would allow their current 8th grade cohort to attend Haldane at a similar rate structure as what we discussed last year for the students who were attending Haldane last year, so that 9th through 12th grade cohort.
I just had, there's some, for all the lay people in the back, there's some language that is sort of strange, or maybe it's missing. On the terms of instruction contract under conditions on number 2, or on number 1, we talk about, it mentions that Garrison Union Free School District agrees to send interested secondary school students who are entering grades 9 through 12. And then the next, number 2, it says the Haldane Central School District agrees to receive all interested secondary school students. There's one, or maybe it's been amended, where it talks about, where it doesn't talk specifically about secondary school students. It just says all interested secondary school students. So is that something, because this is a legal contract, that we have to amend or insert, or is that going to be all students that want to come to Haldane and not just Garrison?
It's all of their all of their students who are interested
Intent is understood, but
yeah.
I mean, do we have to put that in there specifically?
I don't believe so. This language mirrors our existing agreement with Garrison
That we proposed.
that
we did
currently
last week.
our current 9th through 12th grade students who are from Garrison. This language mirrors what we already have in place with them. If you can refer me back to the specific point now that I have it in front of me.
Yes, sorry, it's on condition
2.
Condition 2, receive all interested secondary school students.
Correct.
Right, as opposed to the first one where it talks about interested secondary school students talking from Garrison.
It's an agreement between us and the Garrison Union Free School District. So those are the boundaries of.
Okay. And then later on, we're under tuition charges, where we go down. It talks A and B, let's see, under C, it talks specifically, number 1 and number 2, about grades 9 through 12.
Correct.
And number 2, 9 through 12. And then 3, it doesn't talk about grades 9 through 12, it talks about grade 9, which, again, understanding the intent. But is there any, does that, by not, specifically talking about grades, is that open for
So this is
interpretation?
the understanding now moving forward for
That we're gonna
students who would be
negotiate.
entering grades 9 in the 24-25 school year. So it's the current 7th grade cohort. It's my understanding that the board desires for us to examine the tuition structure and model and look at alternative options for those students moving forward.
And we don't have to add anything in about students in like 10 and 11th grade if they want to come in at a different time, like if they don't enter the cohort with the Garrison. These are just questions that people were asking me from, does that leave it open to interpretation, a different interpretation of intent, right?
Sure. So I would say that students who were to enter at some point in the future, who potentially would be coming in at the 10th or 11th or senior year, the contract does not, I do not believe, acknowledges that situation. So we would have to have a conversation with Garrison about what the tuition is for those students.
And I look forward to hearing more about it, starting for the negotiation for the current, 7th grade cohort,
Correct.
So
Yep.
it'll be
And
interesting
just
to
a
hear
note,
what's-
I did ask John if he would sit in on that discussion just initially, just to talk about what other models potentially would be worth pursuing. I thought John would be a good representative from us. Several people, I have no problem bringing anybody, but John had some ideas last year. And
I don't know whether they're good ideas. Let's
well,
put that
he had
out
some
there.
ideas. We'll take ideas right now.
They were options. Any option is a
Right.
great idea, John.
Right. So you took a motion to approve.
Right.
But then we got into some discussion, so I just want to make sure.
Right, and I also want to give you the opportunity to discuss Mayor's Park, which
That's
is
later.
And so it's going to be later. Okay,
Like
great.
new business.
All right, good. Are we good then? Good. All right. Right. All right. Then I'll. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No, opposed.
No. Great. Thank you. All right. Moving on to consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No? Great. And moving on,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Mayor's Park.
New business.
We're not there yet.
I'm sorry, this draft I have in front of me still has none.
Yeah, but mine did too, that's why
I
I was.
apologize.
Yeah.
I'm in a computer, I'm in a hard copy,
Yeah,
my
not a
mistake.
problem. Not a problem. All right, moving on to our board committee reports. This is an opportunity for Dr. Benante and trustees Valentine, Vice President Clements to talk anything about from that meeting, if there's anything you want to bring in.
Peggy, did you want me to take that, right?
Yeah, I figured it would be easier for Maggie to talk about
Great.
since she's in the room.
So we're still slogging through the policy manual audit, which a lot of that is small language items. We also talked a little bit about 1510, regular board meetings and rules, which was sort of a COVID era policy, right? That allows, under special circumstances, board members to attend remotely. But to do that, we sort of like that idea, right? But to do that, we'd have to allow for the public also to attend. So we're still talking about that. And we have a meeting on Monday to talk about that. We're hopefully the EDI will finally get that, our EDI policy rolling and talking about that. Yes. Yep. And I think that's it. That was sort of the highlights of it.
Yeah, in addition to the EDI policy, there will be another policy that's one of these big total rewrites like we have on the agenda this time. But we're just going to talk about it a little bit more before we bring it before the board. But yeah, I mean, with this, we've finished, we're actually getting really very close to wrapping everything up and sending it back to Erie BOCES. We've gone through all the policies that came through with the audit. So.
Great. Thank you so much for your work and your dedication. I always see the three of you together walking from one place to another, so I can tell in deep deliberation. For Westchester Putnam School Board Association, the only update I have is that, just so you know, there are community conversations that are held twice a month that are open to anybody, officers or otherwise, and the forthcoming is about school safety, among other topics, but that's the focus of it one way or another. And if you don't receive those emails, let me know. I can forward them to you. But that's the only update from there. Moving on to new business. Ms. Shields?
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? All right. Now we're going to talk about the superintendent's evaluation.
That's me.
That's Peggy.
Yeah, so I had meant to write up a timeline. I did not get to it, but basically the board, I think I might be tired about this. I can't remember. I feel like I've talked about it recently, but the board should be prepared for executive sessions for both meetings in December. The first meeting in December, the board will meet by itself in executive session to talk through and decide what, if any, issues we'd like to discuss with Dr. Benante. And then at the second meeting, we will do that with him. This mid-year evaluation is informal, so there won't be anything written, but it is an opportunity for us to have a conversation about how the year is going. I guess the one thing we need to figure out is if we want to meet an executive session before the meeting, which I feel like has become easier than it was a few years ago. So do we want to meet at 6 o'clock on both of those weeks and do it that way, or do we want to meet afterward? So
I always prefer before, if
Before is
possible.
better, yeah.
Yeah. It was a good
everybody says before is better?
Yeah.
Before is better, so just
Constraints
plan
your time.
executive session, yes, both of those meetings.
Great. Lovely.
That's it.
Thank you so much. And thank you again, Peggy, for always taking it on. You've now done it every year that I've been on the board, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for acknowledging it.
Of course. Moving on to the budget calendar draft. This is presented here for our review, and we're going to approve this at the December 6th meeting. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it, but it is our next order of business is related to that, and that is the approval of the modification to the Board of Education meeting and workshop dates. Ms. Shields will read this in. I don't know if there's any discussion, but it should be good.
Megan, would you mind just speaking to the need for the changes to the calendar before you read the resolution?
Sure. There were two main areas that needed to be modified. The April meeting, the April 25th workshop meeting is being moved up to April 18th, and that allows us to meet an April 19th deadline that is in the budget calendar. We also, the reason we had chosen April 25th originally as a workshop meeting is because there's a required PNW BOCES vote that has to take place on the 25th, but we need to prioritize meeting the budget deadline. So in order to meet the BOCES deadline, we will just have a special meeting on April 25th that should be very, very quick to be able to do that BOCES vote. The other change to the schedule was we just flipped the January 17th and February 28th workshop topics. One of them was special education, and in doing that change, it allowed us to align the special education workshop topic with the budget presentation.
Great. And that April 25th meeting, we just need a quorum so that it's not, we don't all necessarily need to meet on that day. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just so that point.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the following changes to the dates for their meetings as follows. Workshop topic revisions to January 17, 2023 and February 28, 2023 meetings. The April 25th, 2023 workshop meeting is being moved to April 18th to meet the needs of the budget development process. And the April 25th meeting is being retained as a special meeting for the PNW BOCES budget vote.
Great. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Got it. Great. All right. Next order of business is the approval to dissolve the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Topic of conversation for a couple of years now that I'm sure that Dr. Benante will speak to before we move forward.
Do you want to take a motion to adjourn
Yes.
comments?
Yes. Ms. Shields.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby dissolves the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Comment.
Now
Discussion.
comment. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. So with the Buildings and Grounds Committee, it was an active committee at one point, an active district committee. That being said, with the creation of the Campus Master Plan Committee, many of the members who were once on the Buildings and Grounds Committee are now on the Campus Master Plan Committee. It has led to the Buildings and Grounds Committee consisting mainly of internal faculty, staff, and administrators. And over the course of each month, Tim, or the Director of Facilities, provides a report on buildings and grounds matters to the board. So I think the initial intention of the Buildings and Grounds Committee was for the board to hear from community members, internal and external to Haldane, about matters that were impacting them as it related to building maintenance and grounds. there seems to become redundant at this point between the Campus Master Plan Committee, where many of those conversations have now shifted, as well as the monthly Director of Facilities report. So with that in mind, it's my recommendation to dissolve the Buildings and Grounds Committee, given that it is redundant and the board is already receiving this information through other means.
And I would imagine that a future iteration of this committee will be put into place once it's possible. Something.
Yeah, I think it'll be called something different.
Right.
But as we move away from a campus master plan to now an actual capital project of some sort, it will be important to keep a group together, whether it's and to be defined who will comprise it, but for the board to continue to have a connection to a group of our community members, internal and external, to whatever phase of that project we decide to take on.
Great. Any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Sorry, I'm a little slow.
I'll wait for
coming
you.
off
No.
mute about that.
Blame the internet. It's not your fault, Peggy. All right, moving on to the external audit report for the 2021-2022 school year, the corrective action plan. Ms. Shields.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the corrective action plan for the external audit report for the 2021-2022 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any context or discussion?
The corrective action plan, or the desired action, was for us to spend the excess fund balance that we had carried into the school year, and we have a plan to do that.
Mm-hmm. We do. Great. And are we in favor? All those in favor of this plan? Aye. Any opposed? No? Great. Moving on to the approval of the professional learning plan. Ms. Shields.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the professional learning plan for the 2022-2023 school year.
Go ahead, stick with this one.
Okay, thank you. All right, can you sidebar me? All right. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? All right.
I just want to note that we moved the intermunicipal agreements to new business, so they're not in the hard copy. They're in the live board docs version.
Oh, I see, okay.
So
why
I
don't
have
you
them
bring
here.
this up?
There you go.
I'm all printed. All right, so
we
then.
are on item
7.
Item number
7.
7.
Thank you.
9.
Thank you, Ezra. We
We're
did
on 7,
9.
going back
Great,
to
so
7.
let's
we're
go
on
into let's go back in time to the approval of the intermunicipal agreement between the Haldane Central School District and the Village of Cold Spring, use of maintenance, Mayor's Park. Go ahead.
Do you want to take the motion?
I do. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
We didn't hear the resolution.
Hold on.
Or the recommended action.
We're getting there.
Got it. Okay. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the intermunicipal agreement between the Haldane Central School District and the Village of Cold Spring for the use and maintenance of Mayor's Park, and authorizes the superintendent to sign the agreement on behalf of the district.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
This speaks to a general agreement with the village on the continued upkeep and maintenance of Mayor's Park. We had an agreement that was quite dated. I'd hesitate to even call it an agreement, a formal agreement that we were operating under, and both the village leadership and the school leadership desired to formalize that agreement. We use Mayor's Park for several athletics teams, including lacrosse, soccer, and baseball. We spoke of baseball a little bit this evening as part of the campus master plan, and this provides regular maintenance plan, mowing and such, and schedule, and what is the school's responsibility and during which time periods, as well as what is the village's responsibility and during which time periods, as well as a process for addressing concerns related to the condition of the field, should any arise, and who the notification process for bringing those to the attention of the village or the school, depending on what may prompt such review and who is responsible for making such repairs to the field if it's necessary to do so. So we feel, both the village and the school, I can't speak for the village, but I know the school feels that, but this puts us in a better position to continue to utilize Mayor's Park, as well as to continue to ensure that it's up to grade, if you will, for use by our athletics teams at such time that it's approved.
Great. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I would like to bring attention to Article or Section 2, subsection 13, which reads, "The Village of Cold Spring will not otherwise schedule events or activities at Mayor's Park during the periods of March 1st through June 15th and August 15th through October 31st. I would like you to kind of tell me about a little bit on what that means, right? It's a public park, right? People schedule small events for their families and things like that. And I just want to make, and I'd hate to articulate the village's intent there, but obviously wouldn't want to make too much of a headache for the Rec Commission and Jeff Romano and all those people there, and to make sure that that scheduling is, there's communication between the school and the village regarding that. So
yeah, we talked about this pretty extensively, and it's not our intention for this agreement to interfere if someone wants to use the pavilion area for a birthday party or something of that nature. But there's larger events that are sometimes held at Mayor's Park, and those are the types of events that we're talking about as it relates to that time period.
Do we know anything, again, I know you can't speak for the village, but do we know anything that will happen in the summertime months, so between June 15th and August 15th? Was there any discussion about, will they still be parking cars? And
I don't know, and I would say the tone of the conversation is to try to limit such activity. That being said, it is the village's property, and we realize that we can't be, they're allowing us to use it, and while we would request that it not be used for such things, it's really up for the village to decide that.
I would push back a hair, Phil, and just point out that though it is the village's property, maintenance is falling on the school district. Investment is falling on the school district.
Right.
And so that would behoove us to protect said investment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the intermunicipal agreement outlines that if there's damage to the property that's caused by activities that the village is allowing to occur, as opposed to school-related activities, that they're responsible for improving or making right, remediating the facility in that way. So I don't think, and again, I can't speak for the village, but I don't think it behooves them to have events that.
No, I see that. It's on 9 and 10. Just making it clear for,
pay for it.
Not everybody's going to read the entire
Understood. Yeah, I get it.
agreement.
Right. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye, sorry.
I waited as long as I could. All right. Any opposed? No? Great. All right. I think I have the language here from the previous edition. So, moving on to the approval of the intermunicipal agreement between the Haldane Central School District regarding improvements to the baseball field at Mayor's Park. Ms. Shields.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the intermunicipal agreement between the Haldane Central School District and the Village of Cold Spring for improvements to the baseball field at Mayor's Park, and authorizes the superintendent to sign the agreement on behalf of the district.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Seconded.
So, as our representatives from CSR noted, you saw an image of the baseball field this evening, and it doesn't look like much of a baseball field. So, the baseball team did some fundraising last school year with the hopes of putting it into field upgrades. And their initial request was to cut out a baseball diamond. That much of that area is overgrown, as you saw in the overview, and they wanted there to be a legitimate baseball diamond in surface to play on. We had 3 vendors come and review the work and provide quotes to us, and the vendors had noted that we could cut it out, but there's some more significant issues here with the grading that really would need to be resolved. If you're going to put money into this, it's important to do it right, if you will. One of the matters, just to speak to it, is if you're standing on third base and looking across the diamond to first base is actually several inches lower below grade from third base. It's not a good thing. So you can imagine then the field's gradually sloping in that area. It's no surprise we have issues with water settling in that area, which just exacerbates the issue. So while the baseball team fundraised, I believe it was close to $12,000 for this work, it's going to cost closer to $50,000 to actually make it right. That includes cutting out an entire baseball diamond, a significant amount of clay then that needs to be compacted onto the property, a resodding of the infield because equipment's going to be brought on, as well as rebuilding the pitcher's mound. If you stand on the pitcher's mound, you're actually off center. You're not actually facing home plate. You're actually facing a little left of home plate. So in comparison to our other field spaces that our kids compete on, it is in need of significant improvement. I know the players and the families' desire for it to be improved. I've fielded many phone calls from them between last spring and now. And as we have noted, the need to spend our excess fund balance, which we're over the 4%. We're in one of these unique situations where we have some money where we could commit to it. These are, I'd like to say these are one-time costs. However, a natural turf surface will always need some sort of annual investment. The village, by way of the other agreement, has committed to an annual fertilization program, which is good not just for baseball, but for any other team that's playing on the park. We have always worked on the field to get it prepared for the start of the season through the maintenance and operations staff. So this gets the field to a playable condition, which I think we're concerned about in its current state. It's not playable. There is no alternate space for the team to access. In the past, when there was issues with the field at the start of the season, if it was wet, we would go to Dutchess Stadium and play. But when the Yankees came into Dutchess Stadium, extended A-ball now doesn't allow for high school teams to access that field like we were in the past when it was short season A-ball. So there's no other options for our team. And I'm concerned, I think they're concerned as well about the playability in its current state. This would allow it to get to a place of playability for the spring season.
There's a timing issue too, right? With getting it going.
There is. So, excuse me. When it comes to the sod component, so the laying down of sod, it's important to do that before it snows. I'll make note that I don't think this evening's snow is going to throw us off, but the sod has to set for a period of time. It can continue to through the winter. That's not a concern, but it needs to get down. If it snows, obviously, and we were to have a foot of snow on the field, then we can't lay sod. So if we do this work in the spring or to wait to do it to the spring, it's going to disrupt the start of the season. It needs approximately 1 month to set. So we don't know what the winter will bring. So if there's this,
will we have time to do that?
We will.
Okay.
Currently.
Great.
Yeah, so it's my hope the board will consider this for approval tonight, right now. The village has indicated that they will bring this before their trustees at their next meeting. And then we have a contractor lined up ready to do the work. So as long, knock on wood, as the snow can hold off for a couple of weeks, we should be fine.
One point of information, just you had mentioned that our baseball team, raised money for their own field, which is not a great look, right, for any school district. So I find it very important to meet those needs. Kudos to the baseball parents and kids and Mr. Dudar for doing that work, but we should be providing suitable fields for our student athletes to play on. Also, you had mentioned that we had in the past basically contracted out with Dutchess Stadium. That's not free. That's a cost associated with that. So, our current situation costs us money with basically the sandlot sitting back there. And so putting money forward for improvements obviously is something that, though possibly not the most ideal situation in a short period of time, is something to fulfill a stopgap. Is that kind of the way you see this, or?
I would say so. As part of the campus master plan, I've met with so many individuals outside of the regular committee structure to get a sense for potential for available field space in the area. The difficulty is there's no an option has not to bring or include as part of what you're seeing CSR present for consideration. The issue I've encountered or we've encountered is there's no immediate option that we can point to say this would be a space that maybe would be a good opportunity for the district to consider as a multi-use field space, which baseball could be included on. You noted the 9D space today, and whether it was Chris or Melissa pointed to, we looked at whether or not we could fit a baseball field on there, but it would be a significant issue with grading or other site work. It would become cost prohibitive. We've tried to examine whether there's any other spaces that may be available to us in the community. There are not in the Haldane Central School District, at least. So this is our best option as it currently stands. $50,000 is a significant amount of money. And but yet it's a field that hasn't had that kind of investment made in it in a considerable amount of time. I wouldn't venture to say how long. So
outside of the geese fertilizing
well,
it for
right,
free
yeah,
for
right,
the,
right.
the
So
village,
the longer that goes on, the more likely or if we were to allow that to continue, the likelihood we'll be back in this situation at some point in the future.
Okay.
Thus, the first IMA, which is to establish some terms and conditions, parameters with the village for just the regular upkeep and maintenance of that space, the entire space. The second now is to bring the baseball field up to a standard of play for the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ezra. Any other questions, comments? No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Ayes have it.
Great.
Megan, remind me, did we approve the professional learning plan before we went back in time? So we're heading forward to policy review, first readings and adoptions. Ms. Shields?
Hang on, did we do the contract with the pupil personnel services audit? Does that need to happen first?
It should happen. I'm not even seeing it on the agenda anymore.
I've got it on mine, but it's only because it's printed out. It was six on the printed agenda on page 7.
Megan, I believe it was accidentally deleted.
Yeah, I don't have it on mine here.
Which one? External audit report?
This one.
Nope.
No, it's here.
PSG.
It's here.
Oh.
What page are you on? Go back a couple pages. Go back to 7.
It's on page 7 of the hard copy.
Yep. Cool.
Great. Ms. Shields?
Approval of the contract between the Haldane Central School District and Public Consulting Group for the Pupil Personnel Services Audit. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the contract between the Haldane Central School District and the Public Consulting Group, 148 State Street, 10th floor, Boston, Mass. 02109, for the Pupil Personnel Services Audit, and authorizes the superintendent to sign the engagement letter on behalf of the district.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
So this
opposed?
is just a question. On my agenda, it shows it under consent agenda financial, but that's not what it is, how it is on the.
No.
That's what I had it as, too.
It is. It is. I think we didn't need to do that, but, yeah.
That's okay. We did it twice. That's how
It's okay.
important
Oh,
it
we did
is.
twice. Yep.
That's why I thought it was on a consent agenda.
Yep. Okay. Now we're on policy review, first readings and adoptions.
Yes, we are.
Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby waives the second readings and adopts the following Haldane Central School District policies as attached: 5660, 7320, 7552, 8210, 8240, and 8280.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? No? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Great. All right, moving on to the policy review first readings. No action to take here. Anything anyone wants to share? Peggy?
Yeah, so these are policies that irrevoces, unlike the other policies, for example, that we just reviewed and adopted, these were extensive rewrites addressing important issues. And so we thought it best to give the board the opportunity to have both a first and second read, right? Because these aren't like minor changes in language, these are pretty substantial rewrites of those three policies, 8110, 8330, 8340. Wait, but now I'm just wondering, yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. No action? All right. Moving on to our final communication from the public. I don't think
And I guess, but the one thing I just want to mention is this is the opportunity for folks to make any comments if they want about these. And it sounds like that there aren't any, but there will also be a second opportunity. I mean, the goal would be at the next meeting, we would adopt these policies unless people have concerns about them.
Regarding your first reads off of these, these ones, curriculum development, resources, evaluate, these ones that, policies. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification, Peggy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Communication from the public. I don't see anybody, so I'm going to omit our paragraph and move on to board reflections. I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to share. We've all shared a lot. No?
I would just say it was great to see so many people from the community, and it was great to see so many people from the community at any of the games over the past month, 2 months. Oh, geez, seems to go on forever. But also so many people from the school, so many teachers who are just there and supporting kids. I think it's fantastic. So it was a great experience.
And all the community that came pouring out of their homes in
yeah.
the evening to celebrate down Main Street. That was a wonderful tradition.
Yes, if there's one reason to scream in the middle of the night for
Yeah.
an athletic team,
That's
a good
right.
one.
Uh-huh.
And I would just like to say that from my friends that had gone to the game, they for the boys soccer team, they said they played. All my British friends said they played proper football.
Oh, very nice.
They played
High
some
compliment.
proper football.
We'll extend that to them. All right. Dr. Benante, any final thoughts?
None. Thank you.
All right. Then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, thank you for setting this up. I really